So good morning, everybody. How are you? It's 8 o'clock my time. Your time, it's probably 9 or wherever you are. I know the Pacific group listens in by the video because it's hard for them to get up so early. We're still trying to find the best timing for this, but this seems to work pretty well. So good morning. We were just discussing that, of course, Louisiana is a hot spot, but just to make sure you understand my version of the hot spot, respinning that horrible news to it's also hot. So I get to wear my t-shirt and my first tank top I pulled out. It's been in the 80s later on in the afternoon, so it's quite beautiful, and which makes it even harder to handle because it's so gorgeous. The weather's spectacular now, but we all have to spend it inside, though I do take a walk in the middle of the street. So thank you all for coming. I just want to make sure that you all know that we've got all the resources online for you at CoveyClub.com, and Marissa will post that link to the article that we created from the beginning of Positive Mornings, which collects all of Wendy and Dana's fabulous information for you in one spot. I'm reading some of the books they suggested. Maybe we'll even go after some of those authors if you're interested. Everybody seems to be willing to come out and talk because they're all locked up, just like us. So people are very open to that. We have a lot of great new events coming online, both in the evenings and then on Sunday evening we do our meditation. I was just telling Wendy and Dana, the evening meditation is on Sunday is really great. Even if you've never meditated before, it's a guided meditation by a new friend down here, and she's quite terrific, I think. And it really helped me. I kept waking up in the middle of the night with all kinds of weird, horrible imagery and anxiety dreams, and I didn't have that last night. So I think that's really great. So I will come back on after this. I'm just going to walk you through how to use your Zoom, just in case you're unfamiliar with it. At the bottom on the left is your mute button. So if you can put that on mute unless you're speaking. And then if you scroll down into the middle, you have a chat button, which is where you can open up a chat box over to the side, and you can see everybody can go in there today and type in. I would say good morning from where you're located, and then just give an idea of where you are on the anxiety level of 1 to 10. 1 being I'm totally copacetic, and 10 I'm freaking out. It's always good just to get a sense of where the room is.
And by the way, that may vary by the minute, by the day too.
Yeah. So make sure that you've got your that little blue lozenge needs to be at the bottom, needs to be set to everyone so that everybody can see it, or you can scroll down on it and just have a private conversation with someone while we're online here. So anyway, I'm going to turn it over to the wonderful Wendy and Dana, and then I will talk to you at the end about what's coming up for the week. So Dana and Wendy, there you go, just as my birds start cheeping, which is good.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first Positive Monday. Well, actually, it's our second Positive Monday because we had one in our Positive Mornings string, but we decided it went so well and so many of you really loved it that we just did decide to continue just on Mondays, at least through April and certainly through whatever's going on while we're all kind of stuck inside. So I'm glad to see you all here. I see some new faces and a lot of folks who joined us last week. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about connecting more deeply. In some cases, this might be simple because you're face-to-face with people that can't get away from you. That might make it more difficult. You might be in a situation where everyone that you're connecting with right now is virtually because you live alone. And so connection at this stage of the game is super duper important. And we're going to really dive into how to do a better job of that, no matter where your starting point is. Okay, Dana.
All right. So just giving a little bit of an overview, and I mentioned this in one of our previous conversations, that the number one predictor of your happiness is the quality of your relationships. And that probably isn't surprising, because certainly whenever we have some sort of strife in a relationship that really matters to us, it can send our whole day down a negative spiral. And the opposite is true. When you're really connecting with those that you love in the most meaningful way, you obviously are operating in a much more beautiful, meaningful, positive way throughout the day. So, there's been numerous studies, and we've talked about a couple of them, about how we've shown that the quality of your relationships enhances your life. And one that I actually wanted to share with you is the studies that have been done in the blue zones. And the blue zones are the areas in the world, and I think they identified 6 of them, where they have the most centenarians, the most people over the age of 100. And they've really studied, what is it that has allowed these people to live such beautiful, long lives and to still be healthy after the age of 100? And a couple of things have become resoundingly clear. One, of course, is the quality of their relationships. These people are living in community. They were connected to the people that they love. They eat together. They harvest their food together. They spend time together. They celebrate together. They have weekend activities together. These people prioritize not only living and connecting with the people in their family that they're close to, but they're deeply connected and committed to their communities. And then the other 2 things that really stand out in these studies, one is these people are always in movement. Exercise isn't just about going to the gym. Exercise is a way of life. So these people are gardening into their 90s and 100s. They're hopping on their bikes to get places. They go for daily walks. And so the importance of getting out and moving. And the other, of course, is the food that they eat. Eating food that is real food, not food that is processed. But today we're honing in on the relationship piece. And what are some of the things that you can do to be more deeply connected to the people that are around you, and perhaps also to your community at large? We've talked about how this time is really a time that we can take advantage of to connect more deeply to the people that we might be living with, if we're living with people, and if we're living alone, and even if we're living with others, to connect in a way that's really meaningful to the people that we love. A lot of times we're so dang busy that we're running around, and connection gets limited to what we do with our thumbs, right? We're texting people to check in, or we're Facebooking people to check in. I can't tell you how many weddings and funerals I've heard about on Facebook. And to me, it's deeply upsetting, because these are people that I consider to be real good friends. And in the days before that type of connection, it would have been a phone call. I would have heard from them. I would have talked to them. I would have listened to their voice. I would have been able to share with them, and, obviously be able to have a conversation that meets them at the heart. And in the day and age that we're in, if we rely on Facebook, if we rely on texting, a lot of times we miss that chance for those deeper connections and to have those conversations with people that really matter to us. So what we want to do first is just pop a question in the window here, and put your answer in the window. And the question is this: what are the ways that you might be connecting more deeply now that we're in the situation that we're in, that we're all home? In what ways are you connecting more deeply? And as a second part of that, what has been the positive thing that has come out of that? So in what ways are you connecting more deeply? And what positive might be coming out of that? And as always, put me in the chat as you give your answer if you'd like us to call upon you, because we'd love to hear your stories and learn from each other. In what ways might you be connecting more deeply, and what positive is coming out of that?
Katie's using the 3-minute listening. That's awesome.
Beautiful.
Rebecca, video chats rather than phone calls. Initiating calls. Whoops, they're going fast now.
Oops. More frequency of the conversations. FaceTime, yeah. Connecting more deeply with my kids for sure by listening to what they're saying and not needing to rush to do something. Beautiful. Definitely listening better. Like sitting and having a longer talk. Daughters and I are planning do-it-yourself. Oops, it's going faster. Projects on the weekends. Love it. More time with my husband since he's home. Connecting more deeply with my husband also because we're together all the time. More time for coffee breaks with everybody during the day. Beautiful. Does anybody want to chime in? If you do, please put me on what positive you may have seen out of these deeper connections at this point. Making my 2 phone calls a day. For those of you that don't know, Lesley in the beginning of our mornings kind of chimed in and said, I'm going to challenge myself to do 3 phone calls a day. Just pick up the phone and call somebody, not with an appointment. Have you noticed now that we always text, when are you free? When can we talk? Just like in the good old days, right? We used to just pick up that darn phone and call somebody. So I've been challenging myself to do that more, and that's been lovely. Love it. Zoom meetings, FaceTime, people thrilled to hear from me. That's great. Funny, I feel more scheduled at times with so many different Zoom meetings. Okay, great. I used a lot of interactions. You know, it's interesting with the Zoom meetings. I have quite a few friends that are from around the country because I've moved around a lot throughout my life. And it's occurred to me how lovely it's been actually to set up these Zoom meetings to see them. And I wonder why the heck did I not do that before? You know, usually we relied on a phone call. And I'm like, wait a minute, you know, my dear, dear friend Erin, who lives in Wisconsin, you know, we're dear, dear friends since college. I haven't thought to FaceTime her or Zoom her until recently. And so this has been a really nice change in our relationship. I'm used to making a lot of interactions and making lots of phone calls. Great. First surprise is I realized how much I miss their voices and energy than having them in my life, not just in virtual reality. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, the technology is a way to stay connected in ways that do help. You know, there are times certainly that we're grateful for that. But to have that more deeper, meaningful connection, we really need to hear people's voices, don't we? And ideally see their faces. Oh, Lord, it took about an hour to get my dad and set my dad and mom up on Zoom, but it worked, and we had a family chat to wish my brother and Nola a happy birthday.
I had that too, Katie. It took me a while to get that rolling.
I'm a hugger, definitely in touch withdrawal. Oh, I feel your pain on that one, absolutely.
Okay.
So the next part of the question is, we'd like you to ask you to think of someone that's important in your life and list some of the things that may be popping up for you that stop you from connecting more deeply with them. This is somebody who's important to you. And what are some of the things that might be popping up for you that limit your ability to connect with them, that interfere with the ability to connect with them more deeply? These may be logistical things like distance, and it certainly could be mindset things or ways in which you have a challenge communicating, whatever it happens to be. And of course, you don't need to share names. What are some of the things that interfere with your ability to connect with them more deeply? Mom has hearing difficulties, suffers from mild dementia. Yeah, that's tough.
I'm having a nonchalant view of the situation, distance.
Annoyance, too much togetherness. Distance, they have asthma, so they don't come and walk or whatever. Yeah.
Lesley's over squeezing her cats. I have a couple of the scratches to prove it.
I have a lot of friends who have kids and are too busy to talk. I tell you, sometimes I feel guilty about that. I end up wedging some conversations and I'm a bad girl kind of while I'm driving, right? That 5 or 10 minutes of driving, you can get that conversation in. And I know I shouldn't be doing it, but a lot of times you just don't feel like you have the luxury of time to sit down and have a meaningful conversation. Being authentic. People aren't always comfortable to share how they feel. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, people shut down immediately. Yeah.
Emotionally, yeah.
People are worried. Rose, I hear that your immune system's compromised. Take care. So thank you for sharing. My husband's going to work until last week. Yeah. So there are a lot of things that can get in the way of our connecting with the people that we love in the most meaningful way. And we wanted to touch on 3 things today. And I'm going to touch on the first 2 that are kind of bringing back from our previous conversations. And I want to bring it into the room here today. The one is our ability to be super intentional about bringing the best of who we are to the relationships that matter to us most. We had a whole conversation, a whole morning dedicated to what does it mean to be intentional, to bring your best self to all that you do, and to really be able to kind of revisit and to appreciate the goodness that we have in ourselves. Because a lot of times we spend ourselves berating those little qualities that annoy ourselves about who we are, but we don't often own and celebrate and even acknowledge what it is that we are that's great, right? And we all have these amazing qualities in us. And so we need to be intentional about cultivating and bringing forth these qualities that we have, that we already possess, and to taking ownership of that. But equally as important is to be super intentional about bringing the best of who we are to the people in our life that matter to us most. And the unfortunate thing, especially if you're living in a situation with family members, right? A lot of times we bring the scraps of ourselves to the people that are in our home life, or we let our guard down and we lack patience. We lack an ability to listen deeply with the people that we're most close to. In fact, the people that we're most close to are probably the people that we listen to the least, because we know them. We think we know them, and we fill in the gaps, and we don't listen as deeply as we could to connect and to really understand them. And that leads into a second conversation that we touched on also in one of our previous conversations, is being intentional with truly listening. When we listen and we're really listening, it's almost like we're in a movie theater, like when we're listening to a movie and we're on the edge of our seat and we can't wait to hear how that movie is going to unfold, what that character is going to do next, what they're going to say. We can't possibly fill in the blanks because we don't know yet. If we could listen to the people that we love in such a way of curiosity and with kind eyes. And I mentioned previously that when I was doing my studying in positive psychology, I see Trish is in the room here today, and Trish was in the program with me. One of the most profound exercises that we did was a listening exercise, and it was so simple and so intense. And our instructor put us into dyad conversations. We were with one other person, and he asked us this question. He said, "How are you? How are you really?" And all we could do was listen with kind eyes for 3 full minutes. And I saw a couple people put in the chat room that they're trying to listen for that 3 full minutes. Listening with kind eyes, not interrupting, not formulating what you're going to say next, not just assuming what it is that they're going to say and kind of formulating your judgments, right? But to listen 100% with kind eyes. And that is a complete game changer in any relationship that you have. And I have to say, when we did that exercise in our program, I've never seen more tissues being tossed around a room. It was very powerful. And it made us realize how little we're listened to, first of all, and certainly how little we truly listen to those that we love. It's a beautiful exercise and something I really encourage you to incorporate into your relationships as frequently as you can. There's also been studies that show, especially with children, that when you listen to somebody intently, and I'm going to use children as an example, when you listen to a child intently for 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day, just giving them that undivided attention for 5 or 10 minutes, it can ward off all sorts of behavioral issues, because most behavioral issues are about getting attention. And even though that 5 or 10 minutes sounds like it should be a no-brainer and completely easy, it really isn't in your day-to-day life. You know, we're so busy, and a lot of times, especially when we're home, we're half listening, right? We're making the dinner, we're scurrying around folding laundry, we're doing whatever it is that we're doing, and we're half listening to that person. But if we can turn our attention 100% to looking at them and being with them in the moment on their terms, listening to what is important to them. It may not even be anything you're remotely interested in yourself, but listening to them on their terms simply because you love them, simply because you want to be there for them and meet them where they're at. That is one of the most beautiful and profound things that you can do. In relationships, especially in marriages, there's a lot of research that shows that one of the most important things that you can do is to seek to know somebody and to seek to truly be known. And that all comes down to listening, and it comes down to honesty and to vulnerability. So to seek to know somebody is to listen and to ask questions and to give them permission to be vulnerable, to share things that where they're weak or where they're afraid or whatever it happens to be. It's also reciprocating in such a way that we share of ourselves in a way that is also vulnerable. You know, usually in the beginning of a relationship or a lot of friendships stay on that kind of more surface level, where we're putting out to them and putting out to the world what we want people to see in us. But those most connected relationships are the relationships where we let down the facade. We're not worried about what they think of us, but rather we want them to know us. We want them to know us for, yes, for what our greatness is and for what our strengths are, but also for what maybe our weaknesses are, or what our fears are, our uncertainties, what our dreams are, what's getting in the way. I remember one of the most beautiful conversations I had with a friend was after I did a speaking engagement. And this is a couple years ago, and I was speaking about happiness, and I was speaking about listening and about sharing your dreams. And we went out to dinner afterwards, and I asked her, I said, well, what's your dream? What is it that you want to create in your life? And I was blown away by her response, because she's a pediatric nurse. And her response was, I want to be a writer. I want to be a screenwriter. And I could not believe the answer. I was like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. I had no idea. And this is a friend that I've been walking with regularly. We connect regularly. We get together on the weekends. And here I never knew what her dream was. And it's because I never had asked. And if you think about it, how often do we really go down that road with the people that we care about most, right? Simply asking them, what really matters to you? What do you want to create in your life? How can I help? What was beautiful is the moment that she shared that, I was able to have a connection with her in our relationship that I had never had, because I had previously written a book. I was able to share some insights with her on how to do a book proposal. I was able to read what she had written so far, and she's absolutely brilliant. So it allowed us to connect in a way that we never would have had a chance to, because I asked a question and because I listened powerfully. So I want you to think about, who in your life would you like to kind of push that pause button, ask questions of, and listen to deeply? This is a time that we have right now, this gift of time that we have to connect with people that we love most. Who is it that you'd like to connect more deeply with and that you'd really like to listen to? And the flip side is, who would you like to connect more deeply with and truly share more of who you are with them? And put in the chat room if you're comfortable. And maybe the more important thing in the chat room is, what do you think this will do for your relationship if you listen more deeply and if you share more honestly? What will this do for your relationship?
It'll make it better, that's for sure.
Yeah. Lucy says, I'm going to get intentional and fully listening. Beautiful. I need to be better with this. Gretchen, we all do. Absolutely. It takes practice, and everything we're talking about in our positive mornings, every one of these things we talk about is practice. Wendy and I teach this stuff, and we need to practice big time. So all of this is being intentional and pausing and practicing. Rebecca
Rebecca,
says, I love. Go ahead, Wendy.
this is the perfect segue to our next topic, Rebecca. I'd love to have an open conversation with my nephew, who, as he's grown up, has become so different from me from a life viewpoint perspective. Okay, so if you come to positive mornings, you're a seeker. Okay. If you engage in these sorts of things, you're probably more self-aware than most folks out there, right? You're somebody who looks inward, who's introspective. We do our best, and we're constantly working on upping that best, right? If you're here, you probably fall into that category. And I'm going to tell you something. You're not going to like it. You are judgmental. Every single one of you, every single one of us, we're wired to be judgmental. And our judgment gets in the way of our relationships, especially when stuff gets hot. I think it was Liz O'Neill, maybe, up in the chat somewhere, who talked about judgment being heightened under these circumstances. Yeah, it is heightened under these circumstances. However, we grapple with it all day, every day in our relationships, because we're judgmental for a reason. This is the way we're wired to navigate the world around us. This is good, this is bad. This works, this doesn't work. It's how we figure stuff out with our judgment. Okay, so we've got all these associations, a lot of them negative, that we hang on the word judgmental. But let's just drop all of the associations. We are judgmental creatures. And we're going to learn to use that judgment to serve us, to navigate the world. This works and this doesn't. And we're going to lose some of the judgment that doesn't serve us, the judgment that gets in the way of our relationships. And there are two ways that happens, two different kinds of judgments that get in the way of our relationships. One of them is value-based judgments. Okay, value-based judgments are the ones that say, this is my worldview, and it's based on what I hold dear, what I know to be right in the world. Okay, and your worldview, I know some of you had a really hard time when we did the loving kindness meditation, and I asked you all to send some love to the people whose worldview was, Lesley was like, I'm sending them coronavirus. The people whose worldview is exactly the opposite of our own. Okay, our judgment gets in the way of connection there. Okay, absolutely does. Does that mean that it's wrong? No. Absolutely not. We need to live our lives based on our core values. Everyone does. Okay. The way around that is to accept people where they are. Okay. So when your values are here and mine are here, you can accept that my truth is based on the same qualities of values that your truth is based on, even if we completely disagree with one another. And when we move this out of the realm of politics and we move it into the realm of actual relationships, it gets really, really nuanced, okay? Because your values, the way that you show up, the way that you behave, might be kind of toxic to me. And should I then accept you exactly the way you are? Absolutely. Okay. And the difference is the human and the behavior. So as we're deepening our relationships, and this is with the world in general, right? It's important to be able to separate the human from the behavior. So I accept you exactly as you are. And we're going to give a tool for this. I'll give you a little precursor on the tool for today. It's positive intent. I accept that every human on the planet is doing what they do with positive intent. Now, that positive intent may not be directed at you, but it is directed at what they believe is the best and most right thing to do. Their intent is not to cause harm, even if they're pointing a gun. Their intent is to protect something that they value. Their intent is to protect themselves from what they fear. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit more about this when we get into the tool. So our judgment gets in the way of seeing people fully when our values are misaligned. Okay, when we can accept that people all come from a place of every human on the planet who is not psychologically, compromised in some way, right? Every human on the planet wants to be respected. They want to be loved. They want to protect the people that they love, and they want to protect the values that they have. When we can accept that, we can accept the world as the whole, on the whole. We do not need to accept the behaviors. So you can say, I accept you exactly as you are, but this behavior is not acceptable to me. And should you choose to behave that way, you cannot behave that way around me. Okay, so when we're in relationships that are a little bit, have conflict in them, they can start from the place of values. And when you're able to separate the human from their behavior, we're able to connect more deeply. And does that mean you need to have an intimate, loving relationship with every human on the planet? Hell no. But I promise you that your life will be lighter when you can accept people where they are in general. Does that make sense? Okay, the second judgment that gets in the way, and this is the one that gets in the way of your close relationships, of the people that you work with, of your family of origin, of the people that you love or might hope to be in love with. And that's judgment that is based on expectation. Okay? We all have a little rule book in our back pocket. And in it, we don't even know that it's there, but it's there, I promise you. In that rule book, there is a definition for every single role. Okay? And you picked that definition up in a million different places. You picked it up from Vogue magazine. You picked it up from the movies that you watch. You picked it up from your culture, from your family, from the political climate, from everything around you. You picked up these rules. And the rules say a good friend does X and a bad friend does Y. A good husband does X and a bad husband does Y. A good teacher does X and a bad teacher does Y. Go ahead and think of every single role that you play. Every single role that the people that you love plays. And we each have this rule book in our back pocket that says what that role is supposed to be. And very few people have the same definitions of those roles. So when your expectation is that if you're a good friend or a good boss or a good colleague, you do X. And my definition is different than yours. We're both doing our best in the world and we're constantly disappointing one another. And then that disappointment consumes the relationship. I found this out the hard way with the relationship that I had with my mother. She's not a perfect woman. None of us are perfect, but I'm going to tell you, I'm lucky. She's a tremendous human being. She was a great mom. She did her best every single day. Oops, hang on, I didn't turn off my ringer. That's probably her. She did her best every single day. Okay. But in my teens and 20s, we were at odds constantly. I was constantly in tears, and so was she. I thought in my rule book, a good mom is a mom who has deep conversations, who introspects the way I introspect, who wants to go deep and sit and talk about all of these things all the time. And my mom wanted to shop. She's a totally loving person. But what she cared about was whether or not I had lipstick on. She cared whether or not my clothes were ironed. She cared whether or not I had an outfit that she approved of. And so we were at odds. And I thought over and over and over again, my God, why can't this woman just accept me the way that I am? Why can't she just say, okay, she's a little rumpled. Wendy's a little rumpled, but she's cool. I love her anyway. It was the day that I realized that I expected my mother to fit my rule book definition of good mother, and that I was equally guilty of disconnecting this relationship, that everything changed. The moment I let go of my rules of what a role needed to be, all of my relationships changed. My husband does not give me flowers on Valentine's Day. As a matter of fact, he rarely remembers my birthday. But he is my best friend in the universe and the best husband I could ever ask for. If I had certain rules that, oh my God, he doesn't love me because he forgets, he doesn't think about me because of, we would have never made it this far. Our definitions of roles get in the way of our relationships every single day. And it gets in the way of your being able to listen closely and see fully the people who are right in front of you. It also gets in the way of your ability to show up fully. And somebody's just put, Sheila, oh, Sheila, hello. Dealing with narcissists requires different rules. Absolutely. Narcissistic personality disorder is a disordered mind. Bipolar disorder, disordered mind, schizophrenia. There are some physiological illnesses that affect people's ability to behave within the normal realm of human emotion. But most of the people who are just jerks, right, are just like us. And they don't have the skill set, just like we don't have the skill set. And we can up our skill set by letting go of the judgment that doesn't serve. And Katie asked if I can give some examples. Did I give the right examples, or was that to a different piece, Katie? You can open up your mic and ask me, because I'm just seeing the thing now.
No, I think that was a good example. I think it's this is deep. This is the whole rule book thing. I had never really thought about that. And I certainly expect everyone to fit my rules. Everybody. How dare they not? But I thought your mother was a good example. I don't know how to get rid of the rules.
Yeah, it's not easy. And Liz asked the same question. How do we start to relax those rules?
And also, I mean, I'm just thinking about, some rules that, my dad still holds over me. That's super hard to break through. How, as a person, do you escape from someone else's rules and realize that, no, you're okay. Their rules are not, normal. Their rules are not appropriate.
Okay, so the first way, I'm going to answer this in two parts, because one is as you and Liz asked, how do we start to relax those rules? We do it by, one, noticing what they are. Okay, noticing what those rules are. 2, dial it back to your actual values. Okay, because remember, the goal is to accept people as they are, but that doesn't mean that once we accept somebody exactly as they are, that we have to have a relationship with them when it's not a match for us. We can still love and respect them, put it all out there, but you're not my cup of tea, man. So have a nice life, right? So recognize what your rule book is. Dial back to your actual values. And I'll give the example of my husband. My dad gave Christmas cards, birthday cards, told the kids, remember your mom's birthday, planned in advance, and all these, there was a very thing about gift giving in my family, very ritualistic, lots of thought, went homemade gifts, like it was a big part of the way I grew up. Paul, not that way at all.
We have the exact same experience, Wendy.
Not that way at all. And so in order to not be upset, hurt by that, I needed to dial back to my values and say, what really matters to me here? What about the gift is important to me? Is it the gift itself? In my case, it wasn't. If it was, it would be a different conversation. But in my case, it wasn't. It was that this person loves and respects me all the time, that they show me in ways that light me up and make me feel connected. And he did, and continues to, right? Bridget's asking, what if it had mattered and been a value to me? If it had mattered and been a value to me, that would have been a conversation, not a judgment. Not clearly you don't love me because you don't do this. It would be, you may not know this about me, but those little things, those little trinkets mean the world to me. I don't know why, but they're really important to me. And it becomes a conversation. Okay, so in rewriting your rule book, you write it so that it's in line with your values. And when your relationships are outside of your values, you have conversations without judgment that are about you. Okay, because part 2 of this, what do we do when somebody else's rules are like this? Right? We can only control our half. That's it. You cannot control what other people think. You cannot control how other people behave. Ever. So the more that we're capable of just owning our piece of it and modeling our piece of it, 2 things happen. 1, people respond differently. The same conversations that you had with somebody that get into like a spiral. Does anybody have those conversations? Go ahead and put me in the chat. Don't worry, I won't call on you for this. Those conversations where you're like, okay, we're gonna do this differently this time. I'm very clear about what I'm gonna say to this person, and we're gonna have this conversation, and then all of a sudden 15 minutes go by and you're like, oh my God, how did we get here again? How are we possibly here again? I planned so well for this. We get there over and over again because we're in our 2 roles of expectations. And as humans, we sense judgment. Our radar is like this for judgment. And when we sense from somebody else that they're disappointed in us, that they're judging us in some way, we either shrink or we attack because we don't want to disappoint people. We don't want to be judged by people. We don't want to be pitied by people. And the person on the other side of your conversation feels the same way. So what happens is when you start having conversations without your rule book, without any judgment, just out of pure curiosity, hey man, in my world, this kind of hurts. And somebody doesn't feel judged. They're able to behave differently than they've ever behaved before. So the first thing that happens is all of a sudden, all of those conversations start to change without you even having to try, because you're coming at it from a different place. The
Another
second
thing,
Oh,
I'm sorry, just gonna add a little thing into that too, that usually when there's conflict, we shut down, right? We get defensive or we shut down. One of the best things you can do when you get into conflict, and this eases the conflict immediately, is to lean in with curiosity. Somebody's accusing you of something. Really? Give me an example. Help me understand that. Talk about a vulnerable thing to do, right? Hugely vulnerable. But boy, does that quell the tension immediately, because that person wants to be heard, just like you want to be heard, right? We want to be understood. We want to be loved. We want to belong. Whenever we're hitting that conflict, and even when we're not hitting the conflict, but certainly in the conflict, it's about us getting a chance to be heard. And usually we do that by escalating, right? But if you can lean in and say, boy, that really bites what you said, or that's really hurtful, or I'm not seeing that one, but help me understand, right? If you can lean into that even just a little bit and try to understand it, it quells the emotion, and now that person's being heard. And you actually might understand it in a way that you didn't before. So just wanted to throw that in there.
And that's an opportunity to separate the person from the behavior, right? You're not saying you're a jerk. You're saying,
She did that with her old boss who was a bully. Yeah. Good for you, Carol.
Right? You're not blaming the person on something. You're asking a question. Ouch. We use ouch. Yeah. I teach my kids to do that in their relationships with boyfriends and girlfriends, instead of like find a fun and funny way to be like, ouch. Right? We would never keep pinching somebody, right? If we knew that we were pinching them. Okay. So there are lots of ways to use these tools. The most important thing is to understand that the only piece of it that you can control is your half, is how you show up in the world and how you're judging the world. You have 100% control over that. Okay. So I'm going to move right into today's tool, which is assuming positive intent. Actually, I'm going to give you two tools because we covered assuming positive intent a little bit. Assuming positive intent means understanding that every human on the planet who does not have a psychological disorder, okay, that's a completely different thing, but every human on the planet who does not behaves from a place of protecting themselves or what they value or what they love. So however that's showing up to you, their intention is positive. And when you approach relationships, conversations from that perspective, the emotional energy is different. Okay, so assuming positive intent. And then the second little tool that I'm going to give you goes along, we might have even talked about this a little bit before, and that's acknowledge and validate. That's the tool that Dana was referring to when she said, be curious in conflict. If somebody's attacking you, be curious, meet them where they are, no judgment, no reaction. Acknowledge, you don't have to agree to acknowledge and validate someone. Okay? The easiest way to do it is to say, hey, I hear that upsets you. It sounds like you saw this. I see that you're really angry about that. Okay. And then you ask a question. Clearly, this is important to you. but I don't understand it. Explain to me what you mean so that I can respond and make it better, or help, or understand. That curiosity shifts everything because we don't expect that that's what people give us. And so when you're putting that out there, it shifts the energy because we move out of that limbic brain and into that more relaxed prefrontal cortex thinking because we're no longer being attacked. Okay, so acknowledge and validate and assume positive intent. Those are our tools for today. And we'll take a minute and have just a little relationship-based meditation visualization to close us out for today. I'm going to have everybody get comfy in your seat. Put away anything that you're working on. Take a deep breath. If you've been holding your breath, start with one of those big old exhales and close your eyes. Just allow yourself to follow my voice as you breathe in and out. It's okay if your mind wanders. If you catch it off in another space, don't judge it. Just bring your attention back to the sound of my voice. There's nothing you need to do, no place you need to be. It's a completely safe space. There is no judgment here. And start to breathe a little bit more deeply, filling your body with air on the inhale and relaxing, melting away all of your thoughts and stress, strains on the exhale. Let each breath be just a little deeper than the one before, filling your body a little fuller, letting go of just a little bit more with each exhale. In the quiet space inside yourself, focus on your heart. Bring the image of it to mind. Whatever you're picturing is right. Doesn't matter what it looks like. As you picture your heart beating, add a color and an energy to that heart as it beats. With each pulse of your heart, allow the energy to become brighter, the color to become brighter. And with each beat, allow that energy to expand throughout your body. Feel the warmth of it. There is no expectation in this energy. There is no judgment in this energy. This is the feeling of pure love pulsing through your body with each beat of your heart. As you breathe, allow that energy to grow so that it fills your chest cavity and it moves down your limbs up your neck into your head, and feel it burst outside of you and spread throughout the room or space that you're in. Each beat of your heart pushing this energy of love wider and wider. This is the love bubble. You can take it with you wherever you go. And as you go about your day today, imagine that you are always in it. If you're in a situation where conflict arises, where there's some discomfort or fear or uncertainty, you can picture this energy spreading to envelop anything and anyone around you, in person or virtually. This is the safest space, and it's yours. Leave that energy as it is, big and glowing around you, and bring your attention back to your breath. In through your nose, out through your mouth. And when I get to 5, you can open your eyes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're back to Lesley.
My God, these are getting harder and harder to come out of. Oh my goodness. I hope everybody enjoyed that. You have such a good voice for that, Wendy. It's really interesting how important voice is. You have to have that calm, really amazing voice, which you have.
The monotone, I can't sing, but it's very soothing.
It is soothing. I can't sing either, but I don't have that voice. So everybody, thank you so much for coming. I hope you'll join us again next Monday. We're going to do these on Monday mornings. Sign up now so that we know you're coming. And we'll send you a little reminder. Look on our social media. I just wanted to remind you about a few other Covey events that are happening, because what I'm doing is we're increasing all of our virtual events a lot, because I know everybody's going stir crazy and they want some calming down, they want some learning, they want some connection. We have Nurturing the New Normal with Randy Levin. That's tonight, 8 to 9 p.m. in Eastern Standard Time. And Marissa will put the links to all this in the chat box there. But you can go to CoveyClub.com and just pull down the attend button and you'll see everything. And we're adding new things every day as new experts come up on my radar and people want to talk to all of you. Wednesday, we have What's Holding You Back at Work with Michelle King, who's an author of a book called The Fix. And that's going to be interesting because she's talking about all the structural issues that need to be fixed. And now that I think there's going to be AC in BC, and I think AC is going to be very different than before Corona. So I'm sure maybe this is the moment when we can all get together and agree to change the structures of regular work in a way that suits women better. So love to hear your points and your thoughts. Friday, April 3rd, this is really great. It's how to avoid self-blame in the financial turndown with a financial coach named Kelly Holland. A lot of us, we're in positions everybody was in and got hammered. And there's a lot of self-blaming and why didn't I do this? And gee, I woke up Monday morning and I was thinking of moving my money and I didn't. She really wants to talk about how to get over that and what you do now. But there is a lot of self-blame and it's frustrating. All of us feel that way. Like, why didn't we see this coming? Well, no one saw it coming, but it's not so easy just to get yourself out of that. Follow us on all our social media and follow me, Lesley J. Seymour, Lesley. You'll see all the stuff that we're doing. I forgot to tell you, on Monday the 6th, we have Love in the Time of Corona, how to be coupled, singled, or both during the lockdown. And that is going to be great. Really talking
It's
about
9 o'clock.
all the issues we're having. And bring friends and tell them about CoveyClub.com. And I hope that you'll join us and support us. Obviously, I'm a solopreneur, so I count on all of you to spread the word and bring people to this so we can keep going. One of the really interesting things that we're doing with Dana and Wendy, which you'll be getting an email today for, or you will also be able to see it on the Covey Club site or in our social media, is a mastermind. People have been after me to do a mastermind for a very long time, and now we're going to do it. We have the time. You have the time. And you get to see how fabulous Dana and Wendy are. This is going to be called Navigating Change, Turning Life's Challenges into Extraordinary Opportunities. It will start the week of April 13th. We want to get a group of 20 women, and we want to keep it intimate. There will be tools and workbooks provided for every call to help you dive deep and apply teachings to your life and work. You'll see that on an email today. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us, of course. Marissa has put a sign-up sheet for the mastermind into the chat, but you will see that email. And if you have any questions for me, you can reach me at Lesley, Lesley, at CoveyClub.com. And until we see you again, hopefully we'll see you during the week as well. But if we don't, we'll look for you again on Monday morning. So thank you for joining us. And if anybody's got any ideas about roots, please send them my way. I may end up doing an actual event on how to do your roots yourself. It will be very fun.
That was fun.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Dana. Thank you, everybody.
Have a great week.
Have a great week. See you next Monday.
Have a great week.